Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Another beautiful day. It's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. Giving thanks. The great Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi, the world thinks of him as a poet. Us Sufis think of him as a Sufi teacher who used poetry. He starts one of his poems with the line, "Today like every other day," and then that poem continues. But I'm going to suggest we hear it this way today. Today, like every other day, it's Thanksgiving. And this is a holiday. It's a family holiday. It's traditional. It has history and story behind it. That's all well and good. And yet, it's really a reminder. Thanksgiving isn't 3 hours on a Thursday in November, and that's it. It's every day, every breath is an opportunity to live in gratitude, in a thankful way. And if we live in gratitude and we live in a thankful way, then maybe a lot of the problems that all of our presenters are going to be looking at today and dealing with today won't be such a big deal. They'll soften, they'll lessen, they'll be mitigated a bit because we'll be living in a state of gratitude which adds heart to our mental anguish, which is what the world is suffering from right now, is all this mental anguish, and we don't have enough heart in it. And so this is an opportunity to remind ourselves that Thanksgiving isn't a day in November, it's a way to live our lives. And that makes me want to remember Grandma Aggie, Grandma Agnes Pilgrim, who probably everyone in this room who knows her says, yeah, she was my grandma, because she was one of these people who had a spaciousness and a capacity to be a grandmother to everyone in this room. And she basically spent the last decades of her life saying pretty much what I just said. Live your life in gratitude and the problems of the world will be solved. She spent much of the last years, decades of her life traveling the world saying, you need to thank your water. Thank your water. That was her phrase. You all are nodding your heads. You've heard her say it. Thank your water. The Australian Parliament, the United Nations, thank your water. It'll fix the world. So live in a state of gratitude. It may hold something. We have a number of presenters with different faith traditions. They're going to look at the theme today, which is love your enemy. It has a question mark. So that presupposes that we're being asked, how does your faith tradition, how does your religion deal with the subject of love your enemy? How do you, in your tradition, love your enemy? So when it's the question mark there, that's what's being asked. If it didn't have a question mark and it had a period there, it would be in the command form of English. It would be a directive, love your enemy, like do it, love your enemy. But it doesn't have a period, it has a question mark. If it had neither a period or a question mark, it'd be a Zen koan. And so when it's my turn to present a little later, I'll revisit that whole notion of the koan part of it. And so that's as much of the introduction as I want to do, and I want to get on with the program. And I need my glasses to get this all correct. To start this morning, we have representing the Cherokee tradition. She's a Cherokee traditional practitioner. Please welcome Coyote Marie Hunter Ripper. And now I'm doing something that Coyote asked me to do, which I just forgot, which is when she's speaking, there's videoing going on and there's pictures, but when she's in prayer or drumming, please no pictures, no videoing. And let's be respectful, unless you're invited by someone to take their picture up here, no personal photos during their presentation. And also, if you haven't, please turn off your phones.
Thank you. OCO. That's hello, how are you, how you're all doing in a Cherokee, in the Cherokee language. OCO, welcome. It's really good to see you all. I'm glad you're here today. I have some sharing and some blessings to share with you. So here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
The first blessing, the first emphasis on this gathering is going to be a moment of silence. Let's take that moment of silence and send that to our beloved mentor, friend, mother, grandmother. We don't speak her name yet. We don't want to call her down from their travels on the Milky Way yet. Let's take a couple breaths. Oh, dude. Wow, that was the loudest silence I've heard for a long time. Good job, y'all. So I have a question for you. I'm going to start right out with. Are you hungry?
Sure.
Well, I have some food for thought for you. Native American is not a religion. So it's listed here with all of these wonderful religions that are being recognized. So how do we recognize Native American practices? Who has an idea about that?
Learn from Marie, Coyote.
Besides that, what do you already know? Drumming. What kind of drumming? Are all the Native Americans drumming the same tune?
No.
Do all Native Americans make drums the same way? Are all of their animal skins made out of the same thing? Are all their songs the same? Yeah. So that's why I like to be introduced as a Cherokee, right? If you can, if you at all possibly can, and you think you're seeing someone that looks like an Indian, how about that phrase? Or you know that you're with a Native American, go ahead and ask them what tribal affiliation they have. There's no offense in that. You know? Go ahead and engage in that conversation, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you. So I'm Cherokee, a little bit Choctaw, Scott, have a long lineage way back to we've traced it all the way back to the 10th century. We've got a castle in Scotland called Hunterstone. My native heritage on the matrilineal side, a little more difficult to track, but we've tracked it back 7 generations. We don't have altars. They're called sacred spaces. If we sit a bunch of stuff on a table and it looks like all kinds of all Native American stuff, that's not an altar. We don't worship anything. what we do is cultivating ceremonial empowerment. And we have various gardening tools. We have talking circles. We have sweat lodges. We have rituals, totems, animal guides. We have the elements of the 4 directions: minerals, water, wind, air. Consider the songs, the kinship, the lineal seed that the keepers have for us, the indigenous cosmologies, the landscapes, and the people. These are all sacred commitments where no person is left hungry or without medicine or without worth. So what do we need to bring all of this into harmony and balance? We're a little bit out of harmony and a little bit out of balance. Yeah? What do we need? Any ideas there? How can we take care of each other when we don't care about the water? When we don't care about the earth, the air, the minerals? If we don't take care of each other globally, we will not succeed locally. If we don't take care of ourselves and others locally, we don't take care of each other anywhere else. Not in our homes, not in our churches and synagogues and temples and towns. Here in this room, I have a water bowl with water gathered from all over the world. And I go all over the place doing water blessings. Done a few with you know who. And some of that water is from a couple gatherings we had together, the Maori tribe, and Siletz tribe, and all around there. So what do we do with this water? We bless the water. You can put your hands in it, over it. Take some, put it on top of your head, to your heart. Bless the water. And ask the water to bless us. In that water bowl, it's back over there against the wall. In that water bowl, there's some water that was gifted to me from Lake Washington. So there's it's a very popular place for recreation. And there's high-end hotels there. There's $300 a night, fun place to go. So the Environmental Protection Agency found some things in that water. That particular agency has had to stop because of the sitting administration we now have in the government. It's been defunded. But what they found before then, listen to this. In Lake Washington, what's at the bottom of the lake? It's kind of like an underwater museum. You can't go a few feet without discovering something. And I'm going to list these off really quickly. Some you might want to cover your ears on. So I'll go quick through here because I'm getting the your time's up signal. There's a World War II era bomber. There's 7 old planes, a dozen coal cars, 400 boats, ferries, barges, 3 Navy minesweepers, garbage, common boats, a baby in a bag from a medical research facility, a body of a dog tied to concrete, possibly a submerged native village that's still under investigation, trash bags all over, 2 human heads covered in black neoprene. And there's the year-round fishing and swimming that we take into our bodies. We drink that water, get the water in our mouth. So how do we heal? How do we define love? How do we define enemy? How do we make our own selves our own enemy? Well, we get out there, we clean it up. We get out there and we sing and we dance and we pray. Lay down in that road. Sit in, stand up, persist, and resist. Honor yourself, your ancestors, your relatives. Honor your God-given heritage. Connect with your indigenous heritage. When you do, you are honoring yourself and everyone else in the world. Blessings to that water over there. It will bless you. Still, I love you. Inahe. Be strong. 2, hadu, is the Cherokee word for health, and it means peace. Hadu.
Do you want to light one candle? Want it lighted from this candle, from the one. Everyone will light the one. And let's all say together, most of you know, we give thanks for the Cherokee traditional practitioner, Coyote Marie Hunty Ripper.
We give thanks.
For the Cherokee tradition. And next we have representing the Vaishnava and Shaivite traditions, Rohini Dasi.
Thank you for coming. I'm sure some of you had other things you could have done, places you could go. Thank you. Thanks, Alan. Swami Tai couldn't make it. He got snowed in. But he told me what he was going to say, which was not very much, because he said he didn't have any enemies, which was great. Well, so I have other things to say. I've had a few enemies. And first, of course, in Hinduism, namaste. The divine with me greets the divine with you and acknowledges it. So what enemies would we have then? But still, it can happen. And so we have other techniques from the Yoga Sutras. Most of you have been to yoga class or heard the word yoga. And from Pada 2, verse 33 and 34. There'll be a little quiz on this later, interfaith quiz. Pratipaksha Bhavana, which means cultivating the ability to change your mood and your thoughts. Can come in very handy. So if I'm tending in a negative direction of thoughts and feelings, I have to get creative, and the sooner I do it, the better. and cultivate the opposite thought. And then it's not just Pollyanna, but between the negative thought I've already had and cultivating a positive thought, I have a full spectrum of options. And that's what we want. We want our options. And out of that, something wonderful may come in an intractable situation. And then, of course, we have ahimsa in Hinduism, and that is to do as little harm as you can in the situation. You may have to do some harm. It may be possible. Do as little harm as you can. And even if you have to kill somebody, don't do it with hatred. Seems extreme, but I'm just giving you something from Hinduism. And if you can't have a positive thought, just can't think of one, all our traditions have prayers and mantras. And Hinduism, you know, Swami would have done Om Ganapataye Namaha or Om Namah Shivaya. I so love Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Jai Hanuman, and the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So we all have many tools, and our traditions have many tools. So let's use them, and we can go from side to side like in yoga class, in our minds and in our bodies. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you, Rohini. And all together, we give thanks for the Hindu tradition. And Jars of Joy, Sydney.
So, thank you for the introduction. So my name is Sydney, and I'm going to be explaining the Jars of Joy tradition that we've been practicing in this event. So although this is not our idea, it was loved last year and it will be continued this year. So this, first, you may have seen the jars on the back table, but you'll just want to choose one and take one from the table, and you can use the pencil and notepad that are included inside and write down things that you are grateful for, things that make you smile, people that you are grateful for. You can even put in small magazine cutouts or objects. And when you are finished, you can fold these notes and place them in the jar, and whenever you're having a down day, you can just dump them out and count your blessings. So we only have a limited number of jars, so if you're not able to get one, please consider recycling some of your old jars and gifting them to friends and family. Thank you.
I'm not sure she really represents jars of joy, but maybe what it's feeling like, looking around the room, is what she's really representing is the great religion of youth. And you know, we give our gratitude for our youth who stepped forward and in various ways, including jars of joy. And while I have a minute, because I'm here at the mic, I want to thank Robin Noel Rohini, who just gave her presentation, who's been a rock in this greater interfaith family for these 36 years. Really grateful to her and her granddaughter, Sydney. I think I have that right. And also, I want to mention Reverend Ruth Kirby, who's been doing the hosting of this for a number of years. And whether she retired or had something else to do, I'm not exactly sure, but Robin approached me about stepping in and doing this. So I wanted to mention Reverend Ruth as somebody who's been a part of this for a lot of years. And so moving along, we have a Jewish representative from Havara Shur Hadash, Alan Kenner.
Bear with me, I gotta reset the sound here. So, a lot of things have happened this last year to the Jewish community in the United States. There's been a lot of sorrow. Misguided people have brought forth hate towards us again, shootings. So in those kinds of situations, we look at, well, what do? We can go around in fear, or we can come together. And really, that's what this is all about. We're all here coming together. And it's not the people that are our enemy. It's just things that people do. That's our enemy. If we all educate each other and open our hearts, then there is no enemy. What Coyote Marie Hunter Ripper was saying about what's happening in the environment, and really that can be seen as one of our enemies. The Jewish faith really believes that we are here to complete God's work and to heal the world for whatever we ourselves do to the world to make it not as good as it was. So I personally have been in a place of feeling like, well, what can I do? There's not much I can do. And yet, I must do something. We look at the plastics industry, incredibly powerful lobby. Plastic is everywhere. Just 5 years ago, frozen dinners were all in cardboard. Now they're all in plastic. All get thrown out, single-use plastic. So I'm working on an initiative that I'm going to be presenting to the community soon that addresses this problem. If you're interested, see me afterwards. I'll leave you with this statistic about that. I read that there was a study done that within 30 years, pound for pound, there will be more plastic waste in our oceans than fish. Now, if that doesn't scare the bejeebers out of you, I don't know what will. So we have to do something. We have to come together. So loving your enemy, well, we talk about tolerance, and tolerance is not enough. We have to delight in the differences between us. So I wrote this song many years ago addressing this exact issue. If you have one of these, you'll see there's a little insert. It has 2 verses on it. Actually, the second verse is the first verse, but that's okay, you'll figure it out. So I hope you'll sing with me on this song. Let us bless all that binds us together and delight in the differences between us. May shalom flow, may God's words echo through our souls. Rejoice, rejoice in the oneness of all. Let us bless all that binds us together and delight in the differences between us. May shalom flow, may God's words echo through our souls. Rejoice, rejoice in the oneness of all. Let us bless all that binds us together and delight in the differences between us. May shalom flow, may God's words echo through our souls. Rejoice, rejoice in the oneness of all. Let us bless all that binds us together, and delight in the differences between us. May shalom flow, may God's words echo through our souls. Rejoice, rejoice in the oneness of all. Let us bless all that binds us together, and delight in the differences between us. May shalom flow, may God's words echo through our souls. Rejoice, rejoice in the oneness of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I was wondering when somebody was going to use the word bejeebers this morning. I was really thankful for that. And let's all say together, we give thanks for the Jewish tradition. And our Baha'i representatives this morning, Rebecca and Howard Oswald.
Oh God, make me a hollow reed, from which the pith of self hath been blown, that I may become a pure channel, through which thy love may flow unto others.
In this sacred dispensation, conflict and contention are in no wise permitted. Every aggressor deprives himself of God's grace. It is incumbent upon everyone to show the utmost love, rectitude of conduct, straightforwardness, and sincere kindliness unto all the peoples and kindreds of the world, be they friends or strangers. So intense must be the spirit of love and loving kindness that the stranger may find himself a friend, the enemy a true brother, no difference whatsoever existing between them. Abdu'l-Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah and the center of his covenant, wrote these words in his last will and testament.
Just as God loves all and is kind to all, so must we really love and be kind to everybody. We must consider none bad, none worthy of detestation, no one as an enemy. We must love all, nay, we must consider everyone as related to us, for all are the servants of one God. All are under the instructions of one educator. We must strive day and night that love and amity may increase, that this bond of unity may be strengthened, that joy and happiness may more and more prevail, that in unity and solidarity all mankind may gather beneath the shadow of God, that people may turn to God for their sustenance, finding in him the life that is everlasting. Thus may they be confirmed in the kingdom of God and live forever through his grace and bounty. Baha'u'llah has said in his tablets that if you have an enemy, consider him not as an enemy. Do not simply be long-suffering. Nay, rather love him. Your treatment of him should be that which is becoming to lovers. Do not even say that he is your enemy. Look upon him with the eye of friendship. Be mindful that you do not consider him as an enemy and simply tolerate him, for that is but stratagem and hypocrisy. To consider a man your enemy and love him is hypocrisy. This is not becoming of any soul. You must behold him as a friend. You must treat him well. This is right. Abdu'l-Baha, The Promulgation of Universal Peace.
So when it comes to institutional hatred and repression, abuse, in the Baha'i Faith, we are given this guidance. By no means and under no circumstances do we adopt the means and methods of our oppressors. All these things, of course, to change our thoughts from loving our enemies to seeing them as loving our friends, requires a great deal of effort. And how are we to do this? Abdu'l-Baha said, replace a thought of war with a stronger thought of peace, a thought of hatred with a stronger thought of love. If one sees 9 bad qualities in another and 1 good quality, focus entirely on that 1 good quality. So in the Baha'i Faith, we see the unity of mankind as within reach, and that what we're looking for when we talk about unity is not unity in conformity, but unity in diversity. I'd like to end with this last verse from Baha'u'llah. It's from something called the Hidden Words. O Son of Spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. Thank you.
Let's all say together, we give thanks for the Baha'i religion. Thank you, Rebecca and Howard. Next, we have from Masjid al-Tawhid, Imam Magdi Zaki.
Assalamu alaikum, happy Thanksgiving. I had a chance to meet too many different people, too many different religions, and it was amazing. And I haven't heard of a religion promote hate. I never heard of that. When the first time I met Rabbi David, when what happened in Pennsylvania, and it was just, I don't think any religion promote killing children. When I went there and introduced myself and I told them I would like to say something, what's the wisdom from something like that happen to kids? So I said, is it okay to say so-and-so? I said, guess what? It's in the Torah, the same story. So all the religion does not promote hate. So when something happened in the Muslim mosque in New Zealand, and it was amazing. Jewish people came from the synagogues in the Friday prayer in our mosque more than the Muslim people attend the Friday prayer. Words not enough to express these feelings. We found out if we come together and show our religion what it's all about, people won't be afraid. I used to say, I'm a Muslim, people get scared. A Muslim, Allahu Akbar, and a bomb. It's not. It's not. It just, some people use the religion for their own gain. Religion does not corrupt people. People corrupt the religions. I'm going to say one verse of the Quran and the interpretation, and I think that will use my whole time. أمر الله المؤمنين بالصبر عند الغضب والحلم عند الجهل والعفو عند الإساءة فإذا فعلوا ذلك عصمهم الله من الشيطان وخضع لهم عدوهم كأنه ولي حميم. God commands the believers to be patient when they feel angry, to be forbearing when confronted with ignorance, and to forgive when they are mistreated. If they do that, God will save them from Satan and subdue their enemies for them until they become like close friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Magdi. Alhamdulillah. Let's all say together, we give thanks for the religion of Islam. And representing SGI Buddhism, Roxanne.
I take it I get the short one. Okay. I gotta use my notes. Our organization is not very big in this valley. The Soka Gakkai International, SGI, is a lay organization of people who practice the Buddhism of Nichiren Daishonin. Our name actually means value-creating society. And we now have 12 million members in 192 countries, and the lay organization was founded in 1930. Nichiren was a Buddhist reformer priest in the 13th century in Japan. He could see that the basic purpose of Buddhism, which was to provide happiness to people, was not being implemented, and individuals and society were suffering. So he spent his life studying and advocating the practice of what he felt was the correct Buddhist teaching to effectively aid all people. He promoted humanistic values of treasuring each individual, cultivating compassion, and forming a peaceful society. And as you might guess, those in power attacked him and tried to kill him numerous times. Nichiren's teachings follow a direct lineage from the historical Buddha known as Shakyamuni or Gautama, who lived in India 2,500 years ago. And Shakyamuni taught for 40 years of his life, but devoted the last 8 years to propagating the Lotus Sutra, indicating that this sutra was his highest teaching. Our primary practice is to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is not just the title of the Lotus Sutra, but it's also its heart. So to understand how the SGI sees this year's interfaith theme, it's necessary for me to explain the concept of dependent origination. SGI practitioners believe that nothing and no one exists in isolation. All things are interrelated, forming a living cosmos. We are all connected at an essential level. This means that each life holds the same value and deserves respect. To denigrate the life of another person is to devalue my own life. In Buddhism, self and other are not totally different entities. The more that I engage in my daily Buddhist practice, I can actually experience my connection to the cosmos. I know, not just intellectually, but I know in my heart, that the other, or what we're calling the enemy today, is also a part of this web and as a direct connection to my life. So I approach conflict, not easily, but taking responsibility for the part of the situation that's mine. So if there was not something in my life evoking the external event or behavior that bothers me, then it wouldn't be in my life. So one way I came to understood this is if you had, imagine 2 glasses of clear glasses with water, look the same, but the bottom of one has a little sediment of sand. The external cause would be the spoon. You can stir and stir and stir, and the one that doesn't have any sand in it, nothing is going to be evoked. I could talk about anger the most because that's my thing. If I stir it up a little bit, I might get gunk in the bottom half, but if that thing's going, I will just get really angry. So that's how one way to look at it. So we see that every situation has the capacity to become fuel for our inner transformation. My struggle is moving from centering on my lesser self or little ego to basing my life on my greater self that recognizes that cosmic web and that we're all connected. So in the SGI, we call this process of strengthening one's Buddha life condition human revolution. And sometimes it really feels like a revolution. But for me, this is changing my life from the inside, not changing my mind. It's not an intellectual process. Our methods are nonviolent and preemptive. We support humanistic education. We actively reach out to form bridges using diplomacy, respectful debate, and dignified dialogue. Our goal is not to win over another person, but to win with them. Transforming ourselves in response to adversity changes a negative event into a positive experience for us. By bringing out positivity from the essential positivity that's in the universe from within my own life, then my outgo is positive back into the environment. And that's the greater environment or an individual interaction. So, we would retreat from physical harm because there's no self-sacrifice in Buddhism. And if we can't retreat, we would protect ourselves if suddenly attacked. But we are likely to engage an attacker in life-to-life dialogue once we're safe again, because that connection still exists. And if we want to change it, we need to deal with that person. So for us, it's not necessary to love everyone who may seem to cause us difficulties, but it is imperative that we treat everyone with dignity and recognize the essential dignity in their life. So in closing, I want to offer a quote from Daisaku Ikeda, our SGI president and my mentor. If all humanity had the ability to perceive the supreme dignity and worth of each person, the direction of history would change for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Let's say together, we give thanks for the Buddhist traditions. And next we have Free-Style Taoist Jean. And I would encourage you to take your time.
might be even, maybe not. But now is all we really got. So maybe we could put our knives away and listen to each other. Listen to the wind. Listen to the weather. Outside and in. Does it really matter whose turn it is to win? Let's listen to each other. Listen to the wind. When you see the worst in me, think that's all there is to see. These things really hurt, and they don't go away. And I could do the same to you, but what good would that really do? Maybe we could find a better way. And listen to each other. Listen to the wind. Listen to the weather. Outside and in, you'll never really know me. If you only want to win, let's listen to each other. Listen to the wind. Let's listen to each other. Listen to the wind. Let's listen to each other. Let's listen to each other. Oh, I forgot. Let's do this, and then I gotta make that little question I have to ask.
Okay. He'll be right back.
But meanwhile, let's give thanks to the Taoist. Free-Style Taoist. Since I lit the candle, since I already lit the candle. This is a little announcement just to help out the organizers of the event, of whom you are welcome to join. How many of you are here for the first time? Thank you for coming. We're curious, how did you find out about it? Did you find out about it through Facebook? Did you find out about it through a periodical publication of some kind or another, an ad? Good. Word of mouth, just someone told you about it, like this is cool? All right, everybody else knew all about it and just, you just know this is where to be on Thanksgiving morning, so. All right, do we need any more information, Robin? Was that good? All right, thank you. Now we can, well, I'll let Clay do it.
I kind of wanted Jane to do it. You know, a lot can be said in a very short amount of time with just mudras, right? Pretty incredible. Thank you, Gene. So let's all say together, we give thanks for the Free-Style Taoist tradition. And this morning from Trinity Episcopal Church, Father Tony Hutchinson.
The best sermon I ever heard in my life was given in Beijing, China, in late summer of 1989, in a house church, on Jesus' words, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your enemy and hate, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who abuse you." During the somewhat liberal period of openness in China prior to the June 4th, 1989 massacre, local Chinese had begun attending services with expatriates. After the crackdown, Chinese security came down hard on Chinese Christians and other groups seen to be too close to foreigners. Old anti-religion rules still on the books started to be enforced with a vengeance. Members of our congregation disappeared for weeks, only to return with marks of terrible physical abuse. Cigarette burns up and down the back. Finally, our congregation decided that the local people and the expatriates in our little congregation would have to go their separate ways and worship separately. This was very hard on all of us because we were close friends, but it was necessary because we wanted to protect people. One of these Chinese members of our congregation spoke at the last service together. He said that he had always thought that love your enemies was a little overdramatic. Why should we have any enemies at all? He said he now understood the passage much better. If I could be so bold, I'd like to refer to a passage in Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. Most of us shifted in our seats uncomfortably, thinking about the Chinese security listening devices in the walls. He told the story. Solzhenitsyn was in a labor camp in the Soviet Union. He becomes more and more dehumanized by his torment, but then in a chapter called Resurrection, regains his faith and starts on the road back to life. He realized that at that critical moment, that no matter how tightly his interrogators constrained him, he always had a choice, though they always eventually could force him to do whatever they wanted. He could do so willingly or unwillingly, cheaply or expensively, in terms of the suffering he endured before giving them what they wanted. He also realized that his tormentors, too, were constrained to do what they did, and that they, too, had a choice in how they did what they were constrained to do. In a system where all were compromised and all were victims in one degree or another, he realized the great truth that the line between good and evil is not found between one country and another country, between one economic class and another economic class, between one political party or another, between one religion or another, between one race and another. The line between good and evil is fine, but very definite, and runs down the middle of each and every human heart. It is found in that space of the heart where we exert our choices, no matter how constrained our choices may be. My friend concluded, so Solzhenitsyn realized that he needed to pray for his interrogator and for all of God's creatures, even for Stalin. It is where my faith begins as well, he said. This is the reason I believe that we must pray for our enemies. They, like us, are in God's image and have that line down the middle of their hearts. No matter what decisions they have made before, no matter how distorted the image of God may have become in them, or how constrained the options left to them may be. We must pray for them, not that they be like us, not that they treat us more favorably, not that they choose what we wish that they would choose, but that in whatever way God wants them, they might opt for the good in their hearts and not for evil. We share with them in our heart the capacity to do great evil or great good. Without such a belief in my solidarity with all my fellow creatures, even those who abuse me, and what I believe is good. And he was saying this with those cigarette burns still healing on his back. Without that faith, I would not have hope that God might work miracles in my own heart. That is why I must pray for even Premier Li Peng, who imposed martial law, and Deng Xiaoping, who ordered the massacre. And so the congregation divided, and our Chinese friends managed to do church on their own. My friend was held hostage in his own country for 2 additional years to buy the silence of his wife, an outspoken Peking University professor who fled China for Germany in the turmoil after the massacre. Finally, at the intervention of the German premier, he was allowed to leave China, and he lives and works in Germany now. But the words of his sermon stayed with me and remain so to this day. The most recent Chinese crackdown on all religions and outright horrendous persecution of Uyghur Muslims in China's far west have made it all the more pertinent for me. Brothers and sisters, and everybody else, we are all God's creatures, and we all bear God's image, no matter how we may have distorted and twisted it. A call to love our neighbors is not a call to ignore horror and abuse, to paper over real suffering with facile statements of forgiveness, to docility without work for justice and amends, or pronouncing forgiveness or hurt suffered by others who rightly are the ones to forgive, not us. The call to forgive, to love our neighbors, is a call to continue to engage with those who hurt others. God loves us, each and every one. So we must learn to love each other, not pretend to love each other, not practice passive aggression as we continue to despise each other, not silently disengage and passively submit, detached to abuse, but love, and love as God loves, which means sometimes being a pain in the ass, and almost always challenging the beloved. Grace and peace.
Nice to see you scurry there for a minute.
Sorry.
Thank you, Father Tony. And let's say together, we give thanks for the Christian religions. It's almost my time, but one thing I'd like to mention is some of the presenters may have to leave right when this is over. Others of us may linger around if there's any questions or comments or any dialogue that's wanted. And the third thing is, it's not all about us presenters. Connect with each other. You all might have more pithy things to share than we do. Who knows? So it's not all about us. Person sitting in his house and it's late at night and somebody runs in the door, it's a thief with a knife and hurries about. Whoa, it's shocking to the person who's in the home, and then the thief runs in and gets some jewels and money and starts to run out. And the person says, wait just a minute, you just got here. Can I put some water on for tea? Would you like to stay and visit for a while? I don't have that many guests. This is maybe a hidden look at what the notion of an enemy is. And if we have an enemy, well, let me back up. There's two different ways to look at this. One is what we would call exoterically or outside, and one is esoterically or inside. And so if we're looking exoterically, which is not the particular path that I follow, although it's included within our path for those who choose that. My choice isn't so much of a social justice person. It's a development of the inner life, and then people do what they do in their lives, and what we would call their dharma, if we're borrowing a Sanskrit term. And so exoteric dealing with things like love your enemy would be environmental activism, becoming a rebel or a poet, or an activist or a peacemaker. And there's people in our family and all over the world who are doing that kind of very good work. My particular interest and work is more on helping people come into their own fullness, and then out of that fullness, they make their choices in life, and our experience shows that they're more effective in their life if they come to their own fullness. If I would look at the word enemy, it's a tricky one. A number of people have spoken that in their tradition they don't really think of an enemy as even real. I would posit that the notion of an enemy is a mental one, and so it lives in that space. In our tradition, we call depth of mind is heart. And so that's what's missing in a lot of what our mental concepts are carrying. But if we add heart, it takes our ego perspective and softens that and gives us a more spacious perspective. And then the notion of an enemy is a fleeting one. There is no real enemy in that sense. Or as the great poet Rumi says, instead of being so bound up with everyone, become everyone. And we already are, but we're blind to that. And so my work and my interest is in developing my own inner capacity to get out of my way. The enemy, in the way I look at it, is my own self getting in the way of my own development. So if I have a love my enemy directive on what I should do in my life, it's to deal with my own inner enemies that are keeping me from my own development. There's another key component to my tradition of Sufism, and it's universal Sufism, which means it's spiritual liberty. Our particular line is unique. Most of the world's Sufis are tethered and tied in directly with Islam. Ours is not. Personal choices come into play, but there's no overriding directive like that. But what we do is, rather than believe in something or idealize something or conceptualize something, we want to take those ideas, concepts, we want to integrate them. We want to make them known cellularly, not just mentally. So we do practices where, and I'll invite you to do that right now. Just take your right hand and just tap on your heart. And just look into the spaciousness of your own heart, eyes open or closed. And you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but why not? There's a phrase, Habib. It means the most intimate, the most near and dear, the most precious one of God. The heart of that is what you're tapping on right now. When you look in the mirror, you are seeing the face of the most precious one of God. Now, the interesting part of it is God is big. So everyone else shares that first place position with y'all. We're all in that position of most precious, intimate one. So when we see it in the mirror and then we look around the room, there is nothing other than Habib Allah, Habib Allah, Habib Allah, Habib Allah. That's what populates the entire universe, is Habib Allah. So the notion of an enemy is our own lack of vision, our own lack of spaciousness of heart. So our work in the world is to deal with that inside. I mentioned the notion of it's a koan. love your enemy. If we take the period or the question mark and just love your enemy, there's the answer right in there. How do you deal with your enemy? You love them. It doesn't mean you don't do your work, but you don't let their personality, decision-making, which is horrific in some circumstances, get in the way of your love. And you don't let your love get in the way of doing your work in the world. The great spy in World War II, famous, statue in London, Matilda, the famous Matilda was Hazrat Inayat Khan's precious daughter who gave her life resisting Hitler and the Nazis in World War II. But she didn't demonize the other. She didn't hate the enemy. She saw through that to the preciousness of who they truly are and then did her work anyway. So that's what I would like to leave you with, is love everyone and still do your work. So let's all give thanks for Sufism. Oh, candles.
How about a candle for all the traditions not mentioned?
Yes, I'll do that. This is the curious part because we turn our back to the group while we do this. This form right here that we're using is, this is what we do. This is our service. Y'all go home and you have your own traditions and you have your different ways that you practice. When we do our service, it's called universal worship or service of universal peace. This is the form. We light candles for the various traditions. We have readings and practices from the various traditions. So this has been offered to the world about 110 years ago or so, and it's been adopted here and in a lot of Thanksgiving services around the country. And what we also like to do is we're very aware that we can't include every religion, every tradition in the world in an hour and a half or an hour service. So we do our best, and different people step up different years, and some people are out of town. So if your favorite tradition didn't get a chance to speak or represent today, maybe next year. And it's an ever-flowing community here. But what we also do is we light one last candle, recognizing that there are traditions, wisdom ways, and people who have held aloft the light of truth amidst the darkness of human ignorance. And we don't even know some of them. And we do know some, and they're not here today. So we're going to light a candle representing all those who are not represented here outwardly today. And we have our closing, which is going to be facilitated by Coyote. Please.
Thank you, Water. Did anyone get fed? Did everyone get fed? Good, good. I did. I haven't been well. I've got the yuccos physically. I don't know, cognitive issues. It's also known as old age. And when I spoke earlier of how we can help each other, how can we support each other, this is it, right here. I feel a lot better than I did at 5 o'clock this morning. Can we continue this? Can we continue sitting together and loving each other and respecting each other and honoring each other and have congenial conversations? Can we invite people into our home and have a cup of tea? I drink tea. If you drink coffee, I'll make some coffee for you. If you drink kofifi, I'll make some kofifi for you. Truly, all are invited at the table. That's a broad reference for all of us to feed upon. So I want to talk a little bit about the sacraments that I have here. There's the smoking pot over here on the table. I know that has another connotation. So in this clay vessel, this clay pot over here, are the 4 elements of burning and of sacrifice. And that'll be burning more and be smoking the place up. And you're welcome to take part in that. Also, we have a bowl, a basket full of blessed cornmeal. This is a Selu Cherokee corn woman ritual. And the cornmeal has been blessed in Lahore, Pakistan, in the temples of Thailand, Maori tribe in New Zealand, grandmother council circles. And you're welcome to take some of that cornmeal, if you like, and offer it up to the blessing of this land that we're on, in gratitude of the indigenous people for which we're here today. You're looking at an interfaith person. You're looking at a multicultural person. So I'd like to kind of tie this up with a Christian Bible verse from the New Testament. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. I want to take 2 words out of that and apply it to my own interpretation. For God so loved the world, not tiny town Texas, the world, that whosoever, not straight white guys, the world and whosoever. Eshte watahe yeshte komanahata. Wadu.
Okay, Robin, are you ready? Where are you? Does that tie it up?
That ties it up.
Okay.
We're gonna make a big circle.
Don't forget about the water bowl blessing, cornmeal, smoking pot, and if you'd like to linger a little bit, there's drums over here where you can drum with me if you like to close up further.
Robin is asking everyone to form one large circle around the room. And as you're doing that, I'm going to invite you all to the next big interfaith gathering, which is New Year's Eve. It's called the Global Peace Dance. It's at the Geos building, which is the old Headwaters building. It's at 4th and C Street. It's across the street from the Unitarian Church. It's New Year's Eve. It's the next major interfaith gathering. You're all invited.
So, can everyone hear me okay? Yes. So, within this circle, we have the Selu Cornmeal Blessing Prayer to honor the 4 directions. So you could turn to the direction if you like, and if you're the person you're holding hands with wants that too. But I will turn for you. Janitsu Selu Corn Woman, mother of us all. I forgive everyone. Go ahead and say that. I forgive everyone. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I send a healing energy. I forgive all past experiences. I forgive all past experiences. I am free. I am free. And thus I send the healing energy of peace, joy, love, and light to you, Mother, to you, Grandmother, and my entire matrilineal line. Woohoo! Yay! That I may shine my own light into the world. Blessings. Blessings.
With your restless heart, you with your battle scars, you with your missing parts, you are welcome here. You with your shifting load, you with your winding road, you with your sacred code, you are welcome here. You can come as you are, you can be as you are, the way that you be. You can open your fear. You are welcome here. With your endless tears, you with your childhood fears, you with your missing years, you are welcome here. You can want what you want, you can say what you want, you can say it to me. You can see what you see, you can say what you see, you can say it to me. You can open your fear. You with your naked eyes, you with your tongue untied, you and your sacrifice.